Last time the state told you a machine was being introduced to help, it was a self-checkout. Now it's the courtroom, and the sales pitch is the same. It's not replacing anyone. It's just making things more efficient. Efficient, that soft corporate word that smells like productivity and quietly means fewer humans, faster outcomes, less friction, no witnesses. Let's slow this down, because this is being framed as AI will help clear the court backlog. That sounds reasonable. That sounds modern. That sounds like progress wearing a suit. But justice is not a warehouse, and defendants are not Amazon parcels, and the trial is not a delayed delivery. You do not fix a democratic institution by optimizing it for throughput. Lammy's argument is simple. The backlog is catastrophic. Tens of thousands of cases waiting, victims waiting years, defendants waiting years, lives on pause, memories degrading, evidence getting cold, and the system as it currently exists cannot cope. So the solution being offered is let AI handle the admin, let magistrates handle more cases, reduce jury trials, create faster courts, push cases through, move, because the real crisis, we are told, is time. And here is the first sleight of hand. The backlog is not a technological failure, it is a political one. Courts were closed, judges were cut, legal aid was gutted, staff disappeared, buildings were sold, waiting lists grew, and now the same system that starved the infrastructure is offering you automation as the cure. That is not reform, that is digitizing austerity. They are not rebuilding the justice system, they are compressing it. And the AI, let's talk about the AI, because the headlines make it sound like robo-judge. It isn't. Not yet. It's transcription, summaries, drafting, scheduling, clerical acceleration. The machine is becoming the invisible court clerk, the silent bureaucrat that never sleeps, and on paper that sounds harmless, because who doesn't want less paperwork? Who doesn't want judges spending more time judging? Who doesn't want speed? But speed is not neutral in a justice system. Speed changes outcomes. Deliberation is not inefficiency. Deliberation is the point. A jury taking longer is not a failure, it is the system thinking, and that's where the real story is hiding, not in the AI, in the juries, because while everyone is looking at the shiny new tech, 700-year-old democratic mechanism is being quietly reduced, trial by your peers, random citizens, ordinary people. The only place in the entire state where power is handed back to the public, and the public gets to look the state in the face and say, we do not agree. That is not a legal technicality, that is a constitutional ritual. And now we are being told it's too slow, too expensive, too inefficient. We need judge-only trials for more offences. We need to keep more cases in magistrates' courts. We need to streamline, and once you accept the language of streamlining, you have already accepted the outcome, because democracy is slow, participation is slow, human judgment is slow. That is its defense against power. So what you are watching is not modernization, you are watching justice being redesigned for logistics, for flow, for clearance rates, for statistical performance. The courtroom is being reimagined as a bottleneck. Now let's talk about the political contradiction, because this is where it becomes almost poetic. David Lammy, the same David Lammy who wrote the 2017 review exposing racial bias in the criminal justice system, the same report that told us black defendants are more likely to be sent to prison, more likely to be given longer sentences, more likely to be mistrusted, more likely to be overrepresented, at every stage. That Lammy is now presiding over a transformation that reduces the role of juries, and juries, for all their flaws, are one of the only points in the system where community bias can sometimes disrupt institutional bias. A jury can acquit when the state wants conviction. A jury can see a human being where the file sees a case number. A jury can bring lived experience into a process designed to exclude it. So the question becomes, what happens to racial justice in a system that becomes more centralized, more professionalized, more administrative, more optimized for speed? Because institutions have patterns, and those patterns do not disappear when you make them faster. They scale. Now let's move to the triangle, the real triangle. Not prosecution, defense, judge. The new triangle, the state, the technology companies, the justice system. Because this AI is not being built by the court, it is being supplied, licensed, integrated, maintained by private infrastructure, which means core functions of justice are now dependent on proprietary systems. Systems you cannot audit, models you cannot cross-examine, outputs you cannot fully interrogate. In a system where the entire premise is the right to challenge the evidence. Think about the philosophy of that. You are in a courtroom where every document can be questioned, every witness cross-examined, every claim tested, except the machine that produced the summary, except the model that structured the information, except the system that prioritized the case flow, because that belongs to a corporation, that is intellectual property. Justice as a subscription service. And this is where the dystopia stops being theatrical and becomes structural, because the machine does not need to be the judge to change the outcome. If the machine summarizes the evidence, highlights the key points, structures the timeline, prioritizes certain facts that shapes the human decision, silently, statistically, without a voice in the room, you do not need RoboJudge, you just need the judge to read the machine's version first. Now go back to the backlog, because this is the moral pressure point being used to sell this as a reasonable action. Victims waiting years, defendants waiting years, and that is real. That pain is real. But here is the question that should be asked and isn't. If the backlog was caused by removing resources, why is the solution not to restore resources? Why is the solution to redesign the process? Because rebuilding is expensive, automation is scalable, and that is the economic truth under the moral language. This is cost control, presented as compassion. Now let's talk about time. Because the government's own projections admit the backlog will still take a decade to fix. A decade, so we are being asked to accept the permanent reduction of jury trials, the permanent restructuring of justice, the permanent integration of private AI into court workflow. For a solution that does not even solve the crisis quickly, that is not emergency reform, that is systemic transformation. And here is the philosophical core. Justice was never designed to be fast. It was designed to be legitimate. Speed is a metric. Legitimacy is a relationship between the public and the system. When people believe the process is fair, they accept the outcome. Even when they lose, the moment the process becomes something that feels automated, distant, optimized, statistical, you lose that relationship. And once you lose legitimacy, you cannot AI your way back to it. So what you are watching is not about clearing cases. It is about redefining what justice is for. Is it for deliberation, participation, public judgment, or is it for resolution speed, administrative efficiency, caseload reduction? because those are different philosophies and we are shifting from one to the other. Quietly, under the cover of crisis, and the final layer, the personal layer, the human layer. Imagine standing in a courtroom knowing your fate is being processed in a system designed for throughput, knowing the public's role has been reduced, knowing the information in front of the judge has been machine structured, knowing the entire system is trying to move faster. You will not feel I am being heard. You will feel I am being processed. And that is the transformation from justice as a ritual to justice as a workflow. This is not about whether Lammy is an idiot. That's too small. This is about something much bigger. This is about a state that no longer believes it can afford the time democracy takes. So it is redesigning democracy to fit the budget. The question is not, will AI clear the backlog? The real question is, when justice becomes a speed problem instead of a legitimacy problem, what exactly are we clearing? Cases, or the public out of the process? Not left, not right, just real.